Most people think saving starts with the first dollar, but the real test is what you do with the last one. In a small coastal town, two fishermen worked side by side every single day. They caught the same amount of fish, sold them for the same price, earned the same income. But after 10 years, one fisherman owned 3 boats and retired early. The other fisherman was still broke, still working, still struggling. The difference wasn't how much they earned. It was what they did with the last coin in their pocket. The first fisherman's name was Marco. Every day, Marco would go out to sea, catch fish, and sell them at the market. He'd make 20 pesos. Good money for a day's work. Marco would take his 20 pesos and start spending. First, he'd buy food, rice, vegetables, meat, that cost him 8 pesos. Then he'd stop by the store and buy things he wanted. A new hat because his old one was faded. A bottle of rum because he worked hard and deserved it. Some tobacco, some snacks. By the end of the day, Marco would count what was left. Sometimes 3 pesos, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. That last peso in his hand felt small, useless. Not enough to do anything meaningful with. So Marco would spend it. He'd buy one more thing. A piece of candy, a newspaper, something cheap. Because in his mind, 1 peso couldn't change anything. Saving 1 peso felt pointless. So why bother? Marco did this every single day. He earned 20 pesos. He spent 20 pesos. And that last peso? Always gone. Always wasted on something forgettable. Years passed. Marco kept working, kept earning, kept spending everything. He told himself he was being smart. I'm spending on things I need, he'd say. And it was mostly true. He needed food. He needed clothes. He needed supplies. But here's the problem. That last peso was never part of the plan. That last coin was always treated like it didn't matter. And when you treat the last peso like it doesn't matter, you'll never have more than what you earn today. After 10 years, Marco still had 1 fishing boat, still caught the same amount of fish, still earned the same 20 pesos a day. He worked just as hard as he did on day 1, but he never moved forward, never grew, never escaped. The second fisherman's name was Luis. On his first day, Luis also earned 20 pesos. He also needed to buy food, supplies, and essentials, just like Marco. But Luis did something different with that last peso. When he got down to his final coin, he stopped spending. He looked at that 1 peso in his hand and said, "This one doesn't get spent. This one gets saved." His friends laughed at him. "Luis, it's just 1 peso. What are you going to do with 1 peso? That's nothing." But Luis didn't care. He took that 1 peso and put it in a jar at home. The next day, he did the same thing. Earned 20 pesos, spent 19, saved the last one. 1 peso doesn't sound like much, and for the first few weeks, it wasn't. But Luis kept going, day after day. That last peso always went into the jar. No exceptions, no excuses. After 1 month, Luis had 30 pesos saved. Still not much, but more than Marco had. After 6 months, he had almost 200 pesos. After 1 year, he had over 300. Now here's where it gets interesting. Luis didn't just let that money sit there. Once he had enough saved, he bought better fishing nets. Nets that caught more fish. Now instead of making 20 pesos a day, he made 25. But Luis didn't increase his spending. He still saved the last peso. Now he was saving 5 pesos a day instead of 1. His savings grew faster. After 3 years, Luis had saved enough to buy a second fishing boat. He hired someone to work it. Now he had 2 boats catching fish. His income doubled, but his spending still the same. He kept saving the last peso. By year 5, Luis owned 3 boats. He had workers running them while he managed the business. His income was 10 times what Marco made. But he still lived simply, still saved the last peso. After 10 years, Luis retired. He had built a fishing business that ran without him. He had saved and reinvested that last peso so many times that it had multiplied into wealth. One day, Marco saw Luis relaxing by the beach in the middle of the day. Marco was exhausted, heading out for another day of work. He stopped and asked, "How did you do it?" "We started the same. We earned the same. I worked just as hard as you. Why am I still struggling while you're free?" Luis looked at him and said, "Because I saved the last peso. You didn't." Marco didn't understand. Luis explained, "Every day, you spent everything you earned, even that last coin. You thought 1 peso didn't matter, but that 1 peso was the most important one. The first peso is easy to spend. It's for things you need. The last peso is hard to keep. It's the one that tests your discipline. Most people fail that test. I passed it every single day. And those last pesos added up. They became hundreds, then thousands, then a business, then freedom. Here's what most people don't understand about saving. Saving isn't about the big amounts. It's about the small ones you refuse to spend. Anyone can save when they have extra money. That's easy. The real test is whether you can save when you're down to your last dollar, when spending it feels justified, when keeping it feels pointless. Marco represents how most people handle money. They spend everything. They tell themselves they'll save when they have more. But more never comes because they never practice discipline with less. The last peso is where discipline lives. It's the hardest one to keep. It's the one that feels too small to matter. But it's also the one that separates people who build wealth from people who stay broke. Think about your own life. When you're down to your last $10, what do you do with it? Do you spend it because it's only $10? Do you tell yourself it won't make a difference? That's the test. That last bit of money is the most important bit. Because if you can't save when you have a little, you'll never save when you have a lot. People who make $50,000 a year and save nothing are the same people. Who would make $100,000 and still save nothing? The amount doesn't change the habit. The habit has to change first. Luis built wealth 1 peso at a time. Not because each peso was huge, but because he never broke the rule. The last peso always got saved. No exceptions. That discipline compounded. That consistency grew. And after 10 years, those last pesos had built an empire. Marco worked just as hard, But he never saved the last peso. So he never escaped. He stayed in the same place for 10 years because he never built anything that lasted. Wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. And what you keep starts with the last dollar in your hand. Save the last peso. Always. Watch the next one.